Good morning, Year 2, and welcome back to your online home learning. I'm here to join you this morning for some more maths learning. So I'll share my screen and we'll get going. Okay, here we are. Hopefully you can see what I can see. So just before we start our main learning for today, we've got a couple of questions to answer to warm up our brains. So we've got a pictogram here on the screen, and I've written down two questions that I'd like you to answer using the data. So how many children have brown eyes in class B? So this is a pictogram to show the colour of children's eyes in class B. So how many children have brown eyes in class B? And how many more children have grey eyes than green eyes? So we're comparing the grey eyes to the green eyes. Pause the video now and have a go at answering those two questions, and we'll go through the answers in a moment. Okay, let's go through them together then. So 7 children have brown eyes in class B. So if we look at the key, each star represents one child. So let's just count them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 children have brown eyes in class B. And 2 more children have grey eyes than green eyes. So if we look at the grey eyes and compare it to the green eyes, there are 2 more stars than there are in the green column. Okay, well done everybody. So just before we start our learning today, I'd like you to just reflect on what did we learn to do last week. We started our new unit on statistics, and what did we learn to do? Okay, so we started our unit on statistics and we were learning about tally charts and pictograms. So just before we continue our learning today, I'd like you to pause and think about what is a pictogram. Okay, we've just seen a picture of a pictogram on the screen. So have just a quick think about what is a pictogram. Okay, so a pictogram is a chart that uses pictures to represent data. Pictograms are set out in the same way as bar charts, but instead of bars, we use columns of pictures to show the numbers. So today, we're going to have another lesson on drawing pictograms, but our pictograms are going to be a little bit more tricky today, because today we will be drawing pictograms where each symbol represents 2, 5, or 10 items. So the pictograms we were drawing last week, each symbol or each picture represented 1 item. But today, the symbols or pictures are going to represent 2, 5, or 10 items. So if we just have a look at this pictogram on the screen now, see if you can find the key. Look at the key, and what does that tell you about the symbol? What does each symbol represent on this pictogram? How many animals does each symbol represent? Okay, so if we look really closely down at the bottom there, we can see the symbol, which is a square, and it says 1 square equals 2 animals. So each square represents 2 animals. Okay, now just a bit more of a tricky question for you to think about. So if I had a tally chart which was showing the data of 5, how would I show that on a pictogram? Because 5 is not a multiple of 2. So how would I show that? So if a symbol represents 2, how can I show 1 on a pictogram? How can I show 5 on a pictogram? And how can you show any odd number? Because we know the number 1 and the number 5 are both odd numbers. So how do you represent those if each symbol represents 2? Okay, so the answer would be you just draw half of that symbol. So if there were 5 cats, I would have my 2, 4. So my 2 symbols represent 4. And then to make 5, I would just have to draw half a square rather than a whole square. Okay, and for any symbol that is, if it's a circle, I would just draw a semicircle or half a circle to represent that odd number. Okay, so let's have a look at this pictogram again. And I'd like you to use the data in the tally chart to complete this pictogram. So have a look through each of the pets and look at the pictogram, and I want you to make sure that the pictogram matches the tally chart. Let's do the first one together, and then you can do the rest on your own. So I'm just going to count the total of dogs, and I'm going to count up in twos to find out my total here, to find out how many I've got in my pictogram already. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm going to check my tally chart. Remember, I'm counting in the fives on my tally chart, so 5, 10. So my tally chart, it shows 10, and in my pictogram, it shows 10. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at what's in the tally chart and then count what's in my pictogram already, and then you can draw the extra squares you need to complete. Pause the video now to have a go at this, and we'll come back together to look in a moment. Okay, let's have a look together then. So I've got my tally chart still, so I'm going to look at the cat now, and I have 5, 10, so I know I have 10, and then I have 4 ones, so that's 14. There are 14 cats. I'm just going to count in twos to check. I have 14 in my pictogram. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So I've had to draw 5 more squares there. And then my rabbit, in my pictogram, I have 12. In my tally chart, I have 12. In my pictogram, let's just count to check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I've added 2 more squares. And then the amount of fish in my tally chart is 16. Let's just count in twos to check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. There are 16 fish in total, and there I've added 3 more squares. Okay, that was your first pictogram and tally chart. Have a look at another one. Okay, so this time we have got some books. Okay, just have a look at the key first of all. What does each symbol represent in this pictogram? Okay, so hopefully you've been able to see the key on the side here. So each symbol in our pictogram represents 5 books. Okay, so again, just like we did with the previous one, I'd like you to use the data from the tally chart to help you to complete this pictogram. Remember, this time, each book represents 5 books. Each symbol represents 5 books. And once you've completed that, there is a challenge X, just to think about when would you use a picture to represent 10 objects? When would you need a picture to represent 10 objects? Okay, pause the video here to take your time to go through and complete this pictogram. Okay, let's go through it together then. So I'm looking at class 1 first of all, and I'm going to count the total of books in class 1. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And I'm going to go to my pictogram and count 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And then class 2, I'm going to count in 5s again. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Count our pictogram. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And then class 3, 5, 10, 15, 5, 10, 15. Class 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And then in our pictogram, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And then in class 5, there are 4 groups of 5, 20. And I have 4 books, which equals 20. And then in class 6, there are 3 groups of 5 and 3 groups of 5. Okay, so thinking about when we would need a symbol to represent 10 items. Well, when we're collecting data using larger numbers, so thinking about maybe data using 50, or something like that, one-to-one correspondence becomes inefficient. So that means that if my symbol were only to represent 1, that would take me a really, really long time to complete my data, complete my pictogram. Because if my data was showing 50 of something, I would have to draw 50 of one symbol. Okay, but if my symbol represented 10, I would only have to draw 5 symbols. Okay, so we need to make sure that we're not always using one-to-one correspondence, that we're using different amounts when the numbers are getting larger. Okay, so finally then for your practice. Year 2 sells some cakes at a bake sale. The tally chart shows this data. Draw a pictogram to represent the data. And your key needs to be each symbol representing 5. Okay, so draw out the pictogram on a piece of paper that you have quickly available. Remember, you need your cakes down the left-hand side to show all of those different flavours. And then you need to choose a symbol to represent your cakes. That might be a circle, a square. You might want to draw a very simple cake outline to represent each of those cakes, okay? So look at the flavours, fill in the information, and then draw out your pictogram. When you have completed that, for your challenge X, I'd like you to think about how many symbols would you need to draw if each symbol represented 10. So if your key was 10 instead of 5, how many symbols would you draw for each of these different flavours? So you may want to draw a pictogram that represents 5, and then another pictogram that represents 10. Okay, pause the video here to have a go at that pictogram, and we'll come back together and have a look in a moment. Okay, so let's have a look together then. So I've got my tally chart here and I've created a pictogram. So I have my cake flavours and all of those flavours down the side. And then I've chosen a triangle to represent my cakes. So for chocolate, I know there are 4 groups of 5. So I have my 4 triangles. For lemon, let's count our groups together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 7 groups of 5 and 7 triangles. And red velvet, there are 5 groups of 5, so I have 5 symbols. Mint, there are 6 groups of 5, so I have 6 triangles. And carrot, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 groups of 5, so I have 8 triangles there. Okay, now, and I've also drawn my key. Don't forget to draw your key. For that challenge X, I wonder if you were able to have a go thinking about how many symbols you would draw for each flavour if the symbols represented 10 instead of 5. So for each of them, I would need to halve the amount of symbols I drew, okay, because 5 and 5 makes 10. So for chocolate, I would just draw 2 triangles. Lemon, I would need to draw 3.5, okay, because 7 is an odd number. 3.5, so it wouldn't halve easily. Red velvet, I would need 2.5 triangles. Mint, I would need 3 triangles, and carrot, I would need 4 triangles. That was a really tricky challenge X, so well done. Well done if you were able to have a think about that. Okay, so let's think about your challenge for today. Now I have completed 2 sheets on which I'll upload onto Teams for you. One of them has got the pictograms on there with the tally charts without the information, and one of them has got the pictograms and the tally charts and the information, so the headings and the sports and things have been added into the pictograms. So you don't have to worry about writing those out. So it's up to you what you want to do. Alternatively, you can complete it on a piece of paper if that is easier for you. Okay, so the thing I want you to do is, looking at this tally chart at the top, I want you to draw 2 different pictograms to represent this data. One pictogram needs to have a key of 5, so each symbol represents 5 items. And then the second pictogram symbol needs to represent 10 items. So think about that. remember when we talked about if each symbol represented 2, how would I show 1? This is the same here. So if each symbol represents 10, how will you show 5? Okay, have a think about that. That's quite a tricky one. And then for number 2, I'd like you to draw a pictogram to represent the data in this weather tally chart. Now, it's up to you which key you would like to choose, but make sure you choose carefully, looking at the totals and thinking about the multiples of 2, 5 or 10. Which one will be easiest for you? Okay, so those are your challenges for today. So I should have 3 pictograms, 2 pictograms to show sport, and 1 pictogram to show the weather. Okay, there is a challenge X if you would like to stretch yourself further, which I will talk you through now. So Teddy and Eva both brought a pictogram to show how many cars they counted driving past their school. You can see there the pictogram there, you can see different amounts. What is the same? What is different? Whose pictogram do you prefer and why? Okay, so Teddy's pictogram is here and Eva's pictogram is here. What is the same about them? What is different? And whose pictogram do you prefer and why? Just pause the video here to try and think about at least one thing that's the same, one thing that's different, and then whose you prefer and why. Okay, so the same. Both pictograms show the same information. Both pictograms are easy to read. Both have used the circle as their symbol, and both of them are in the same order. So we have blue, red, silver, black, and green, both in the same order. Things that are different. Eva is counting in tens. So if you look really closely, you can see Eva's key symbol equals 10 cars, and Teddy's, the symbol equals 5 cars. Okay, so Eva counts in tens, Teddy counts in 5s. Teddy's is vertical, which means straight, and Eva's is horizontal, which means to the side. Okay, so that is your challenge X for today. Now, just as that last question there, I think the pictogram that I prefer Eva's pictogram because I find the information easier to read, and I think it's much more efficient using a key of 10 because Eva did not have to draw as many symbols as Teddy did. But you may prefer Teddy's instead of Eva's. Okay. Finally then, for our fluency number sentence to end our maths today, 49 add 11. Okay, you may want to draw me base 10 to help you. You may want to draw a number line. You may want to draw 10 frames to help you. Have a go at showing me how many ways you can show your workings out. Okay, so the answer to 49 add 11, the answer to that is 60. And I know that because 4 10s add 1 10 equals 50. So 40 add 10 equals 50. And 9 and 1 using my number bonds equals 10. And 50 add 10 equals 60. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me for our maths lesson today, Year 2. I hope you have a really wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye for now.